Well, good day, friends. Lately I found myself thinking about the old days and how things have changed over the years. I grew up, well, fairly old-fashioned. Dad, he had kind of had a Mennonite upbringing, so when I was young, we did a lot of work with horses, teams of horses, and at one time there we had enough harness there, we could have harnessed up 7 teams. 7, 8, I don't know, something like that. But over the years you start getting more modern machinery and started doing things a little more modern. But up until I was 17, a lot of our wild hay meadows, we put that hay up with teams of horses. It was too soft for bigger equipment, and in places too many rocks, you wouldn't have wanted to take modern equipment out there. But here was an old horse mower. They had a 5-foot cutting bar on it. This still worked when it was parked, but pieces got taken off, and so yeah, they'd cut a 5-foot swath, and you need a fairly good team of horses on one of these. Even though it doesn't look that big, they pulled hard. Of course, there's no power takeoff, so what made that knife turn was these wheels. And the way it was geared, that's what powered your knife. So the faster your horses walked, the faster the knife blade went. But yeah, the stuff's been just sitting now and sitting for a lot of years, and I think back to them days, and actually I kind of miss it. Back then I didn't like it. Everybody else was doing things more modern, and we were out there using horses, but yeah, I kind of miss it now. This has had guards taken off, and the wind board is gone. It's been taken off, and of course the pole is gone. Pole's rotted out of it. But was an old way of putting up hay. Back in the day when these horse mowers came out, they were quite the thing. Let's go look at some more old equipment. Here's what's left of some of these old horse rakes. Man, I spent a lot of hours on them. I think we got six of these old rakes laying around. There's another horse mower there with the knife's laying down on that one. Seat's gone. But yeah, we had 6 of these old horse rakes. They didn't all work. A couple we just used for parts. Raked a lot of wild hay with them. Yeah, the poles are rotted out of this one too. These actually pulled fairly easy. You didn't need huge draft horses on here. Anyways, the hay raked a little different with these. The modern rakes, you go around and around the field, and they make a swath along the edge, or they make the swath going around and around, kind of an endless swath. These, you went around the edge of the field and you would rake the hay. You would rake the hay until it got big enough in there, and then you would trip it. The teeth would come up and go back down, and that was the beginning of your swath, and you would just keep going around the field that way. So instead of your swaths going around the field, they went across it. Then you'd rake some more until you'd get enough for another swath, then you'd trip it, and once you'd make your way around the field, then you would then you would start and you would come in on the end of where you dumped that last swath, and when you got up to it again, up to where you had tripped it previous, then you would trip it again. So you would make a long swath that way. Once your swath was made, then you would go down it lengthways and you would make it into bunches. You would rake that swath up until you get a big bunch, then you'd trip it and go back down. The teeth would go back down, and then you would rake again until you got enough for another bunch. So when you were done the hay meadow, there was just like little hay bunches all over the hay meadow. And that was usually me and my brother's job, was riding those hay rakes. And then Dad came along with this sweep. It's falling apart now too. And he drove 4 horses on here. These poles are fastened together on the end here. They're rotten, everything's rotten. And then of course there was your evener and your single trees. So 2 horses were on this side and 2 horses were on this side. And Dad would stand on this bottom sill and he would drive those horses. Yeah, it wasn't easy. You know, it was a little different hookup than what they run on, you know, chuck wagons or, you know, or something like that, the 4 horses. And so yeah, he'd drive 2 on each side, and he would travel around with this, and he would gather all those bunches and push to keep collecting up bunches with this. And once he got a big enough load in there, sometimes the hay would start pushing up way high. So he would actually, then he would step up and balance himself on this top sill, hanging on to the reins of 4 horses. He'd balance himself up there, and then he'd take it and push the hay up into a stack. And once he got a few loads pushed up into the bottom, then he would put up 4 poles on that stack, and then he would come with another load of hay, and he would hit that at a fairly good speed, and those horses would keep pulling, and this whole apparatus here, this whole sweep, would slide up those poles, and he would deposit a load of hay on top to make the stacks taller. So sometimes he was way up there, way up on the stack, and the horses were down below on the ground. And then he'd swing them around. These ends would just swivel around. Same on the other side. He'd swivel one team around at a time, and then he would just go the other way. And then he'd be on this side and go the other way and go up to gather some more hay. So yeah, it wasn't always easy, but like I said, I quite miss those days. And then in winter time, those hay stacks, that hay had to be hauled in every day. He'd haul, you know, a couple loads, sometimes up to 3 loads, with a team of horses and a hay rack, a basket rack, and that was on a bobsled for winter time. And sometimes you'd get out to that stack and the snow will have blowed, and you had to do a bunch of work with a scoop shovel, shoveling a bunch of snow away first before you could get in there to that stack. And then we forked all that hay on by hand. It was loose hay. We forked it all on that rack by hand, made a big load and pull it in and fork it off for the cows, and then go out and get another load. And yeah, it didn't matter if it was minus 40 or blowing like crazy. Those cows had to be fed, so you went. And what I always found interesting was if the trail out to that haystack blew in that you couldn't even see it, those horses still knew exactly where it was. They walked right on that track. Pretty amazing animals. But then when it got towards springtime and there wasn't enough snow for the bobsled anymore, the hay rack, then the rack would get moved over onto a wagon. There's this one with steel wheels. Later on I used rubber tired wagons, but the hay rack would get put onto there, and it was the same thing. At least you didn't really have to shovel snow anymore, but you still had to go out there and fork that hay on and fork it all off for the cows. So yeah, it was a lot of work. People nowadays don't realize how easy they have it. Go and get into a heated cab on a nice tractor and go out and grab some round bales and dump them in feeders. It was a lot of hard work, but like I said, thinking back now, you know, you get older and you start thinking about the younger years, and like I said, I actually, in a lot of ways, I kind of miss it. There were some good days too, and it's always nice working with horses, so especially if you had a good team. But anyways, I just wanted to tell you guys a little bit about that, and yeah, I still don't know how Dad did it there, balancing himself on there and hanging on to 4 horses. That's one thing. I drove lots and lots of teams, but I never ever drove 4 horses, and especially not the way these were hooked up. You know, it's different if there's one team in front of another team, but this was a whole different deal. But anyways, folks, I'm gonna sign off now, and I just wanted to make a video about this. I've wanted to for a long time, and hope you enjoyed it. I want to thank you all for watching. Keep moving forward, and the good Lord willing, we will see you down the trail.